tenero. Daddy's back, you bitches! Daddy's back, you bitches!
Dave, come on.
Come on! Nico, what are you doing?
Dave is not coming.
Ignore him! Come on, we gotta get this thing ready before we dock. Let's go!
To have to introduce this game is almost an insult to its legacy. It's so famous that everyone has heard of the Grand Theft Auto series, but it's not always viewed in the same way. Take Grand Theft Auto 4 for example. On a surface level, it's almost like a gangster's paradise. You've got guns, cars, women, sex, drugs, violence. And that's exactly what Rockstar Games wants you to see. That's the thing that attracts people to their games. It stirs controversy, and so your favourite man, Jack Thompson, can talk about it, which, of course, stirs more controversy. But you scratch that layer, you look past the parts that were designed for horny, lonely and bored teenagers, and you see the true tone of this game. It tells a very serious story about crime and the realities of it. You see, unlike in other games released by Rockstar Games and in the Grand Theft Auto series, crime isn't some funky thing that's just another way of life. It's a whole different scene. When the police sirens stop, the police don't. They don't stop looking for you when you've run away. You can't just kill everyone and have no real impact on yourself. Your character can't live a happy, normal life whilst gunning down people without hesitation. And this is when realism comes into play. The moment we load up GTA 4 for the first time, we're introduced to this cutscene. This cutscene says all we need to know about the game and foreshadows some of the events that happen in the story, making it an interesting watch when replaying. We begin with a man named Dave being whipped for sexual pleasure by an Asian woman. This breaks the tension as the scenes before were the loading screens, which show us some serious shots of the characters, accompanied by the melancholic themes, giving us a dark indicator of what the game could become, and even though it's a sex scene in a video game, it shows the way that Rockstar writes their jokes, using characters and events that don't have to fit in with the rest of the game's story. Basically, you can write a character for one joke and never have to involve them in the story again. We then see an Eastern European guy knocking on the door, telling Dave to prepare for docking, but of course the man is ignored. I guess he already is preparing to dock. That Eastern European man is, of course, Nico Bellic. When Nico starts walking around the platypus, the ship that they're on, with an Egyptian man, they talk to each other about America and the possibilities there. We graze through Nico's story at war and the effects after it, but we're not left too long to dwell on it. We also learn about Nico's cousin, Roman. Roman has it all: women, cars, money, mansions, and Nico is, of course, attracted to this. Nico has lived a rough life and so he needs an escape. When he gets into trouble and needs to run, he runs to his cousin. After some amazing shots of Liberty City, the beautiful main theme, and the character dialogues all come to a halt, the ship docks. Everyone has left the ship, but Nico hasn't because his cousin is late. Not only a foreshadowing that Roman isn't reliable, but also a metaphor for Nico's life. Everyone else has moved on and has experienced liberty. Meanwhile, Nico has to sit around and wait at the docks. Eventually, Roman arrives, drunk and driving. The cousins are reunited after a long and difficult time, and they're very cheery. Roman is yelling in a drunkenly way how Nico is finally here and how they're going to take over the world. Nico seems a little bit concerned, especially when Roman can't remember any Serbian. Yes, they are from Serbia, not Russia. This very point is mentioned and joked around with numerous times in the game. You're just purely racist, now get out of here. Nico seems so happy to see his cousin initially, but his face paints this image of confusion as he learns more of his cousin's life in America. This scene covers a reoccurring theme. Nico is overly pessimistic, Roman is overly optimistic, and they bounce off of each other. They arrive at the apartment and Nico thinks this is some sort of joke. He enters and he's trying to be polite, but he's so distraught he can't hide his hurt. He confronts Roman aggressively about his blatant lies. Nico has come from his home country after feeling the need to leave his criminal background. He thought he was going to get a break by going to the City of Liberty to see Roman, like a lot of people do. And you feel Nico's pain. He's being lied to by his cousin when he's vulnerable. On top of that, Roman plays it off as some sort of joke. The topic quickly moves back to Nico. After some hesitation, Nico decides to share some heart-wrenching stories from his past after Roman asked. This is an intense scene. The camera pans in on Nico and his facial expressions to show the distraught of remembering his past. He is clearly troubled by this and could talk about this for a long time. Panning back the camera just shows Roman is sleeping through it though. Nico, more aggressed, slams on the table and once again, Nico's story is put on the back burner. Roman has to run off after being threatened by a man over the phone, so he gives Nico instructions on how to get to the mission and then he runs off. This is a common theme that will be shown in the story. Nico's story is suppressed every time he tries to talk about his past or his feelings. He is halted by the people he is opening up to or those around them. Nico puts up this tough guy around others, but he's just as in need of help as others. Nico isn't a generic goon with a gun in his hand. He's a sufferer. He wants to leave this life for another, but he can't because he's tied into the game. He's one of the most open, realistic and relatable characters in the GTA series, despite being so closed off and distant from our reality. A lot of the details tie in as the story progresses. You get to know who the man on the phone was and why he was threatening Roman, and you even end up working for him. You get to find out more about the cab business that Roman owns, you get to know more about Roman, you get to know more about Nico, you get to discover Liberty City and some of its inhabitants, you get to go to Alderney, you get to learn about the platypus and its crew and what some of them are up to now, and this is how opening missions should be. You know enough to intrigue you, but not too much to drown you in information. Admittedly, the first mission is a bit slow and doesn't offer a lot gameplay wise, but story wise, this is an amazing start. It is something beautiful. After that, you get to explore Liberty City, or at least a small portion of it. Liberty City sets the scene here. It's perfect for the themes of this game and often they bounce off one another. The small size of the map makes you feel isolated, while making use of this by revisiting areas and using rooftops and interiors of buildings to reinvent places, still leaving you with lots of areas to explore. Everything from the graffiti on the trains themselves and the underground subway system they're hosted in, the large skyscrapers that look like they're going to consume you, just like everyone else in the city is, the alleyways, the rough areas, the nice areas, the dark colour palette displayed in the game, the cars, the pedestrians, the shops, the obsession everyone in the city seems to share, that the goal is to get to the top of the food chain with money, drugs, cars, apartments and women. all while not ever getting there, but instead spending their life in debt and pain, the dreams that didn't even exist in your sleep. All of this sets up the dark themes of the game. And yet, there are some nice things about the city. It's got a nice beached area with a nice pier. It's got pink and orange sunrises and sunsets. It's got nice scenes of nature, albeit rare, perhaps adding more to its appreciation. It does have some wholesomeness hidden beneath the blanket of crime and celebrities that seem to be wrapped around the city. The city can be so rewarding and so menacing and punishing at the same time. It makes you understand why people live here, but why it's also a dark, earth-generated hell. It sets the perfect backdrop for the story. To those who already know the story or don't want it spoiling, you can skip to the time on screen or skip to the characters section using the timestamps in the description. There will be spoilers throughout it all, but the biggest field of them will be here. The story I'm about to tell is very summarised and will miss out big portions of the game because they're not necessary, so if you want the full experience, I recommend you buy the game yourself. It's an impressive game and still very enjoyable and active despite being over a decade of age as of writing this. I could most probably talk about this game and its story for the same amount of time as the game takes to complete, and some more videos about GTA 4 aren't out of the picture, but we'll see. For now though, let's continue this video. Nico eventually finds his way to Roman's cab depot and he meets Mallory, Roman's girlfriend, and his loan shark Vlad, whom of which is in the Faustin Mafia. Nico does odd jobs for Roman and his taxi depot, meeting some interesting characters like Little Jacob. However, this takes a sidestep after Roman gets himself in trouble with some loan sharks not related to Vlad. After dealing with the same loan sharks that Vlad said he'd deal with and protect Roman against, Vlad becomes more pressing for his money, but because of Roman's gambling addiction, he's incapable of saving any money to pay off Vlad. So, Nico must work for Vlad to help Roman pay off his debt. Meanwhile, Mallory sleeps with Vlad to prevent Vlad or the Faustin Mafia from having Roman's bloodshed. When Nico gets hold of this information, he kills Vlad.
You were the stupid one, Vladdy boy. Nobody fucks with my family.
When Nico kills Vlad, he opens up about his past and some of his intentions of coming to Liberty City. He was betrayed when he was in the war by someone in his group of 15. They were all men from Nico's home village, with Nico being friends with most of the group. The betrayal led to the group being ambushed, resulting in 12 of them being killed, whilst the other 3 managed to escape. One of the 3 remaining was, of course, Nico. He has set out to find out which of the 2 left led his friends to their demise, and knows that one of them is living in Liberty City. Side note, this is a really good way to introduce a motive. When the protagonist announces it to another character, it's a flowing way so it keeps the theme and mood where it was, making it sound natural. Also, you're not burdened with the motive at the start, so you've got time to digest everything instead of throwing everything at you and watch you climb out of it. Vlad's death then leads to Roman and Nico getting kidnapped by the Faustin Mafia. After Nico is about to be tortured, Mikhail Faustin walks downstairs and asks why they're torturing a man in his house before murdering his own goon. Nico and Roman, after being shot in the stomach for screaming, are let free, provided Nico works for the Faustin Mafia. After Faustin finds out someone is selling them out to the cops, he becomes more paranoid and aggressive than before. He orders Nico to kill a man named Lenny Petrovic, who is the son of Kenny Petrovic, the leader of the Petrovic family, with the family being one of the most influential families in Liberty City.
You, get it.
Are you sure?
Sure. No, I'm not. Right now I'm wondering if it's him or you.
Against Dimitri's wishes to not kill Petrovic, Nico does it, not feeling he can rebel against Faustin. Kenny wants war, so Faustin gets Nico to deliver some explosives to Petrovic's garage and detonate them. Faustin isn't afraid of Petrovic at all, but Dmitri wants peace, and after conversing with the Petrovic family, they concluded that peace would be made between the Faustin Mafia and the Petrovic family if Niko killed Mikhail. Niko doesn't seem comfortable with doing this, most probably being at least a little bit intimidated by Faustin, whilst also not forgetting that he was the one who managed to get himself and Roman free from torture and presumably death. Feeling out of options, he goes ahead with the request, knowing it's for his and his cousin's safety, and the only way. After killing Mikhail, Dmitri told Niko to meet him to collect the money for the assassination of Faustin, but this turned out to be a betrayal, and it's revealed that Dmitri was working with Ray Bulgarin, a Russian human trafficker that Niko used to work for before his cruise ship sunk, leaving everyone dead except Niko, who had to swim miles to shore and flee from his country in fear of Bulgarin, as he assumed that Niko had been responsible for the sinking of the ship. Thankfully, little Jacob, now a friend of Niko's, was watching for Niko in fear that the transaction turned sour like it did. After fighting through the Russians and getting clear of any cops or more Russians, Niko calls Roman to talk about what has recently happened, having decided that they need to flee from Hove Beach, their current place of stay, at least until things had cooled down. However, Dmitri is one step ahead and has started burning down Roman's properties. He burns his cab depot along with his apartment, which housed a proposal ring for Mallory. He calls Mallory to ask her if her cousins up in Bohan have a safe house they can use, to which she answers positively. Niko, now with no real work, no money, but a big desire for revenge, attends the local youth club with Mallory, who introduces Niko to some criminals that Niko can work for. Niko begins working for these people, as well as Bruce Lee Kibbutz, Roman's close friend, with these people introducing new characters and elements themselves. Around this time, Niko's girlfriend, a girl called Michelle, is introduced as an undercover agent, working on Niko as her target. She then forces Niko to work with her workforce, presumably the IAA.
Yo, me think me know the eater come from in a king.
Hey, Niko. Hey, Jacob.
What are you doing here? This is no place for you, Michelle.
As it happens, it is. You see, Niko, I have been working for the government. I'm afraid it's my job to watch you. And now I have to ask you for the coke.
This is a joke, right?
Please, please don't make this harder for me than it already is. Look, they're about to take down Elizabeta.
I don't fucking believe this.
Listen, I'm sorry it had to be this way, Niko. I'm really sorry. Hey, you know, you could have gone down too, if you weren't so useful.
You fucking bitch.
Niko.
Hold on. You mean to say you're going to let us off just like that? Nothing now go on?
Well, my employers need the help of a guy like Niko. The office is in Algonquin. I'll call you. You know, as and when we need you. The coke, please.
Shocking, I have to tell Elizabeth she now get that cocaine.
Niko works with them, killing suspected terrorists in return for his freedom and the man that he's looking for. Niko also gets himself involved with the McCreary family, an Irish-American crime family. This starts off as an odd job, but eventually he runs alongside them in most of their work, and is a critical part of the politics of the family and associates with all of them, at least somewhat. Dmitri decides to kidnap Roman to try and get Roman to give up Niko, but is unsuccessful as Niko bursts in on the kidnapping and rescues Roman. Niko, enraged by this, wants to get back at Dmitri, but at Roman's request, Niko leaves them alone. Eventually, the stakes get raised as the story branches forth. Roman manages to claim his insurance money from the burnt down cab depot and apartment, resulting in him restarting his taxi service and buying a fancy apartment in Algonquin. Niko robs a major bank with some of the McCreary family, resulting in even more money. Niko gets himself in with some mafia families. He even manages to find one of the men he was looking for, although he finds that this man, Florian Kravitz, now under the name of Bernie Crane, wasn't the guilty one. After working more, Nico is given his break. Darko Brevic, the guilty man who got all of Nico's friends killed, has been found and brought to Liberty City for Nico to deal with. Following this, he is told by Jimmy Pegorino, the head of the Pegorino family, one of the families Nico works for, to take part in a huge heroin deal, with Pegorino offering $250,000 to Nico for doing the deal. Nico, however, is unsure on whether he should take part as Dimitri is involved. Nico phones Roman, unsure of what to do, telling him to do the deal. Then he phones Kate McCreary, a friend of Nico's who is presumably more than just a friend at this point. She tells him to not do the deal and stick by his beliefs. If you want to hear what happens next in the story, then I recommend you play the game for yourself, because it's much better to experience with your own eyes, but I will be going over the rest later on. Let us unpack what we've got already and eat what's already on our plates before helping ourselves to more. Characters are an important asset the game owns. They add a lot of flavour to the story, not only reflecting modern America, but also giving an expansion on Nico, as seeing the way he interacts with these people reflects on Nico himself. They also paint some side plots and can be good focuses for some downtime from the main plot. Roman is halfway between the American idiot and the down-to-earth person we know Nico to be. He chooses to wear his idiocy to fit in and try and forget his past, to the point where his new idiocy is a big part of who Roman is, and it seemingly replaces his old self. The American dream seems to be his goal, and he always thinks he's going there, even when things are looking negative. His belief is that you've got to have a few nightmares before you can get your dreams, and so he shares this belief with most of the aforementioned American idiots. However, to describe Roman like that is doing no justice. Roman fantasizes about owning a calm business with Nico. He's completely in love with Mallory despite his multiple one-night stands. He's a very emotional character, both in the way he'll hurt easily and lash out and cry to show his upset, but also you feel so sympathetic to Nico and wants to provide positive outlooks for his cousin, offering everything he's got, emotionally, physically, and financially. He seems to jump from one emotion to another very quickly, perhaps displaying signs of bipolar disorder, and perhaps he has medication for it, hence his overly optimistic outlook on everything. He is the person who knows the most about Nico in the story of GTA 4, and can provide the player with the most backstory, bar Nico himself. Roman plays a big part in the story, both in the way that he's always there for Nico, but also he provides Nico with work and contacts, introducing him to others he knows, like little Jacob. Little Jacob is a Jamaican gangster who is first introduced to Nico via Roman. He's an extremely loyal friend to Nico and is there for him both for work and for fun. His loyalty is first proven when he insists on being backup for Nico when he goes to meet Dimitri, and Jacob fears he will be betrayed by Dimitri, which is exactly what happens. Nico didn't ask for him to provide backup, in fact Nico didn't even involve Jacob initially. Nico didn't pay him. Jacob received nothing for helping Nico, but he genuinely seems to care for Nico, and he cares not only for Nico. For example, he has shown concerns over Roman's gambling addictions and Badman's paranoia, with him being afraid of the latter both in fear of his own safety, but also because Badman is his best friend. Badman seems to be his cousin Roman, as he doesn't seem to have many family he associates with and he is seen as brothers with Badman. Despite being second in command of a relatively large-sized gang, he also tries to balance a normal life and a criminal one. For example, he is a close friend of Roman and hangs out with him, despite Roman not really being involved in the criminal underworld at all. He even attends Roman's wedding. He does not seem to be pessimistic like Nico, but is often seen relating to things Nico feels, and he is seen feeling down sometimes. He does not seem to be indulged in the American dream either. I believe this is because he is seen to be moderately intelligent, again another common theme in GTA 4. It is often those seen with lower intelligence believe in the American dream and extreme fortune. It sounds like a negative, but looking at the other characters who are pessimistic, perhaps it isn't such a bad thing. The American dream may not be true, but its concept drives those to their goals. He seems to be hardworking and isn't afraid to get his hands dirty, like when he helps Nico with a job given to him from ULP. Nico seems to be the closest to a realist. Unlike Roman or Nico, Jacob will see things for what they really are. He seems to be understanding, although he has some of his odd moments. He generally seems to help Nico forget the past and look forth despite wanting more from life. When Nico gets to Liberty City and ends up angering the Faustin Mafia by killing Vlad, Dmitri, who is the second in command of the Faustin Mafia, and a henchman named Andrei kidnap Roman and Nico. He would have had them both tortured and then probably killed would it not have been for Mikhail's intervention. This shows that Dmitri doesn't care what the consequences of his actions are and would murder without batting an eye over it. However, given the fact that he, just like most people in this game, is a criminal, maybe this doesn't stand out. He is shown to be obsessed with power and greed, and despite being intelligent and having the power to live a higher up criminal life, lets greed get the better of him. But it's not just strangers and potential enemies he'll ruin for the betterment of himself. He kills and betrays many of his own people, including his best friend and partner in crime, Mikhail Faustin, and then later on Nico, and, depending on the player's choice, Jimmy Pecorino, all for the betterment of himself or his gang. But ironically, one of his most famous quotes of the game comes in a relatively somber moment in The Master and the Molotov, where Dmitri states, "We can choose the game, Niko Bellic, but we can't change the rules." A quote he has never followed. Mikhail Faustin is only in the game for a short amount of time, and so not a lot can be said about him, but I still think he has a little something to give. Faustin is framed by Rockstar to look like the bad guy, but when he's gone you see the true effects. Dmitri turns on you, Mrs. Faustin is grieving, and their daughter is still seeing dangerous men. Faustin was not a good man. He did what he thought was right, but that vision of what's right and what's wrong is completely tangled. This is what makes it easy to side with Dmitri at first. You know that Faustin is doing bad things, and Dmitri agrees. But Dmitri still turns out to be the bad guy. Faustin was a family man to begin with. He seemed to genuinely care about his family. He brought them to America to live free. Faustin tried to live the American dream through crime, but he failed. He let the American dream become his family's American nightmare. Bernie Crane is one of the men from Nico's village and the first one of Nico's two suspects of betrayal that escaped that Nico visits. Assuming Bernie to be the snake, he tracks him down and is about to kill him when he realizes he wasn't the one who sold them out. He, like Roman, has two sides, one for his past and one for his present. It's almost like Bernie Crane and Florian Kravik are two people who live inside of him. Florian is who he was when he was living in Serbia, an angry, closeted gay man feeling oppressed by his life and his country. Meanwhile, Bernie is his new life. He's open about who he is and feels no shame in it. His anger is no longer there in Bernie. This is as close to true liberty he may ever see. He tries to ignore his past and is obviously still ashamed of it. However, when provoked, he shows the dragon inside will still breathe fire. He even mutates his speech to sound aggressive and similar to Nico's, maybe even a match to his past's, something which is very out of character for him. However, it seems that unless he's provoked, he doesn't think about his past anymore. Unlike Roman though, Bernie struggles to deal with it calmly when confronted directly. Bernie still struggles with Florian's character and life, and it may be the one that lives with him forevermore. It's the devil watching over his shoulder that he can't shake off. This shows it still lives with him. However, he is still not like Nico. Nico has not been able to think of anything but revenge for the past years. Bernie, meanwhile, has started all over again, and is the man he always wanted to be. However, with his new identity, he has completely lost anything the military would have given him, any skill, any ability, any help, as he is incapable of staying in shape, defending himself in hand-to-hand combat or otherwise, and he seems to lack logical planning, which may be a subtle sign of him becoming more Americanized. However, he offers an interesting perspective on the story. Darko was the one that got away with the betrayal, but really Bernie was the one who got away. Darko lives a life of hell, which we later learn about, and is eventually captured. Meanwhile, Bernie started afresh, and his past is a distant memory, or at least until someone reminds him of it. Bernie doesn't seem to be too concerned with what happens to Darko, as he is not a part of his life anymore. Speaking of, Darko Brevic was the traitor who sold out the 15-man squad. He makes a relatively minor appearance despite being one of the main, if not the number one, story points. After going into hiding and scrummaging around, the IAA track down Brevic and bring him to Liberty City so that Nico can get what he's been looking for. I want to save what I have to say about Darko for the other sections, but for now, just know that he is an interesting character. Paki McCreary is one of Nico's friends who provides some interesting dialogue. He comes off as a bit of a dick to begin with, trying obvious tough guy things to seem like a big man. But if you spend enough time with him, you'll learn that he's just as insecure as he is cocky, maybe even more so. He has an unhealthy relationship with drug abuse, something that plays a big role in his life. You'll learn about his father committing suicide, as well as molesting Paki and Gerald when he was still alive. Paki talks about suicide himself, and he is clearly not happy with the life he lives. He has self-esteem issues raised to the roof, and despite seeming like an immature child or teenager sometimes, he suffers through real problems from the poor life he's made for himself. Maybe it's because Nico is quite mature for this game, but Paki seems a lot younger compared to Nico. Having said that, Paki shows some moments of maturity. For example, he's interested in poetry, which you would not expect from someone like him. Paki is the acting head of the McCreary mob family through most of the game, so he bears a lot of responsibility, despite the McCreary mob family not doing so well. This, and the fact that he feels he must be better at running the family than his farmer, whom he claimed ruined the family, leads to stress, which is how I imagine Paki started coke in the first place. And depending on the choices made in the game, Paki may have a lot of grief to be dealing with, leading to more stress. Dwayne Forge and Playboy X were high-ranking members and leaders of the North Holland Hustlers, but Dwayne was jailed after he was snitched on. When he returned, things were a little shaky. Dwayne still wants to run the business like it was before he went inside prison, but things have changed. And Playboy wants to run things better than before Dwayne went in. Dwayne thinks Playboy has turned into an object, so manipulated by whatever money says, that he's more like a Playboy model. Meanwhile, Playboy thinks that Dwayne needs to stop being edgy. Despite only seen together once, the way they talk to and about the other one is interesting to see. Playboy is living the gangster's dream, with a house that overlooks the rest of the town, money everywhere, and an opportunity to go legit, yet not feeling a need to. Meanwhile, Dwayne struggles with depression and suicidal thoughts a lot. I think he is perhaps the person Nico can relate to the most, whereas Playboy always puts himself on a higher level to everyone else. Rockstar has a way of making you feel emotionally attached to the characters they use in their games, and no other Rockstar game does this like GTA 4 does, which is why it makes it more difficult to make the choice of who lives and who dies in this virtual world. When the game gives you a choice, you are expected to know what choice you want to make. The first time that this is introduced is when Roman calls Nico when he's on his way to a mission. You can either choose to help Roman, who is in danger, or ignore him and carry on with your mission. Either way, it doesn't really matter, because no matter which one you choose, you'll do the other mission after it with only a small change in dialogue. However, later down the storyline, you're deciding whether to let people live or die, and usually if you let them live, then they'll give you a random encounter mission, which ultimately doesn't make a lot of difference, but can add some layer of making it seem like it makes a difference. But there are 3 choices in the game that seem to have a big effect. These 3 don't change a lot of the storyline, nor does it change much of the gameplay, but it has a bigger effect emotionally. The first one is when Playboy X gets anxious of Dwayne because of his actions. Although he didn't do it himself, Dwayne got Nico to take over a strip club he used to own that was taken over by the Trenches brothers when Dwayne was imprisoned. Playboy worries that Dwayne is becoming too reckless and powerful, so Playboy calls Nico over. Nico makes a joke about killing Dwayne, and he saw it as nothing more than a joke. Playboy first calls him cold and acts like it came from nowhere, but then starts to see how that would work for him. Just look at how uncomfortable Nico is when Playboy says he has to kill Dwayne.
So what you gonna do? Kill him? Hey, I didn't say that. Hey, I was joking. What else is it? I mean, Captain is off. Now I said you did you tight. Said you disrespect. Called him man. He's so crazy. I mean, he's gone. Prison does that. Well, you can't kill him. No. But you can. But I don't want to. Neither do I, man. But if you know what I'm saying, we all dead anyway. I mean, Dwayne was killed. I don't like this conversation. You think that I do? But it's kill, be killed out there. You got lunatic out there? Man.
Nico has previously said Dwayne and Nico are similar, and so have a connection because of that, so killing him would be very difficult. Dwayne later calls Nico. He's clearly distressed and asks Nico to kill Playboy. It hurts Dwayne to hear him say that himself because he was like a son to him, but he thinks it's the only way out.
Don't make no sense.
Have things ever made sense?
They made sense inside. 3 meals a day, time in the yard, lockdown at 8. Things out here is mad crazy.
Tell me about it.
For the down low, I think Playboy wants you dead. Like you let him do for the cap in my dog. Yeah.
That's what you want. Seriously.
Nah, fuck that shit. I ain't ready to go out yet.
I'll have to think about it.
Based on what choice you choose, the turn of events that follows can be quite dark. You can take out Playboy X. It's not an easy kill since despite ignorance he hasn't done much wrong, and you get the impression that if things were different then he'd be a good kid. You end up inheriting his penthouse and Dwayne becomes your friend, vowing to stand by you. Playboy is a young man you just cut down in his prime. Dwayne feels guilty about it, which you learn when you go drinking with him. Or there's the other way. By choosing Dwayne, you create a darker avenue. You go to his house where he's confused at your betrayal. You break down the door and get attacked by a rough looking guy, probably some drug addicted homeless man who's only there for the drugs. Perhaps the only one who cares about him except you. You explore Dwayne's house and you see how poorly he lives. He lives without a real bed, in a dirty apartment with obvious signs of poverty. No wonder he always carries his gun around in his apartment, feeling suicidal. You walk up to Dwayne as he explains what you're doing is wrong, and explains his confusion to you. He turns around so as you don't have to face him. Face what you're about to do. Because he still respects you, even if you don't respect him. His last words are him engraving your betrayal into your conscience. Nico raises the gun to his head but struggles to do it. Eventually, with enough hesitation, Nico will pull the trigger. and you've just lost a close friend. You've killed someone too much like you. Nico earned some money out of this, but was it worth? What can you buy in this game that's so worth it? Nothing. Nico phones Playboy, only for him to say he wants nothing more to do with Nico. Playboy's answer machine makes it apparent that he misses Dwayne and regrets his choice. You can then read an email that Dwayne would have sent to you before his death that becomes increasingly depressing. Dwayne was drowning in his troubles, and yet he still reached his hand out for your help, and all you did was push his head further down in the water. You killed the bridge he tried to build, despite all of the water pushing against him. If you call Roman about this, he clearly doesn't understand the situation, thinking this is just about the money.
Cousin, how are you?
All the better for hearing your voice, NV. You sound down. Are you okay?
Not really. I got caught up in an argument between the drug dealer and his drug-dealing mentor. I had to choose who'd win the argument, and I chose the young guy. Playboy X is his name. Now he's paid me off and is treating me like an asshole.
So? He's treating you like a rich asshole. Who cares? Enjoy yourself. Spend the money on a clean hotel room and a dirty college girl. Call me if you want to hang out afterwards, cousin.
And despite Rockstar's sick prank, intentional or otherwise, this is not a funny moment. For some players, they'll sit back and wonder who has to go for a long time. I know I did originally. And even though it's now obvious to me which one I should go for, it's not all that simple. Playboy nor Dwayne deserve death, at least not in my opinion, and both could have changed to have their lives mean something more. But how do you go from two people who probably don't deserve death to two people who do? Let me introduce Francis McCreary and Derek McCreary. A corrupt crook cop or a sellout scum. Let me back up. About a third into the game, you get introduced to Packy McCreary, an Irish-American gangster that Nico ends up getting quite close to. You get close to his family too, whom of which consist of Gerald, Derek, Francis and Kate, all of whom are siblings. Whilst Gerald, Derek and Packy all chose criminal paths, Francis chose to become a cop. But don't let his badge fool you. He is just like his brothers, using people like and including Nico to sort out his problems, such as killing wanted men. Francis is a complete crook, and most of his missions consist of silencing people who are looking to point out his corruption. He even tries to slither his way to first place in the police race, the role as head of commissioner. He uses blackmail to get people to listen to him, and when that doesn't work, he'll return to suck up to people and beg like a little dog. Derek, meanwhile, rats people out to the feds and runs away to hide when he's caught stealing from the mafia. He's a junkie that wastes any and all money he's got to have a man called Charlie come have a look at his internal pipes. He just lays around on public benches just waiting for his life to be over, knowing that he's ratted people out, the same people that he sends an unknowing Nico to go out and kill, mind you. And yet, I still can't decide who to kill. They're both disloyal to their own people. They both have chosen terrible paths, least of all sending someone to kill your brother. Francis, on the one hand, claims to be a true cop and may be doing some good, but then again Gerald and Packy would care more if they found out that Derek was dead. Francis used people like they were dirt, but Derek sold them out like they were dirt. Neither Kate nor her mother deserve to have the death of their brother and their son on their hands either. Both have good and bad things about their characters, and so it's up to you as the player to decide who wins this round. It's clear from the dialogue after you kill Derek that Nico feels bad for killing Derek and finds Francis disgusting because of this. Some people would argue that killing Derek is canon because a cutscene plays for his death, and he's dead by 2013. Others would argue that Nico would be more likely to kill Francis because he's got dirt on Nico, and might never let Nico go if he's still alive. All we know is that the choice truly is yours to make. The last of these three is Darko Brevich's fate, the big moment that the game builds up to. The Darko Brevich. After all these years of fighting, of surviving, of scraping by a small income just to survive, everything leads to this moment. Before you get there, you pick up Roman, and you both engage in some conversation. Nico is clearly pleased he's got this opportunity after this long, even though he is far less fond of the reason as to why he's pleased, along with what I would imagine to be some general anxiety for a big life-changing moment. But Roman wants him to forget and move on, whilst also understanding what this means to Nico, and knowing he won't stop now.
Well, this is the big moment. What you've been waiting for so long. I hope you will not be disappointed.
Disappointment is not a consideration. I have not been the same man since the day that Darko betrayed us, since I saw those things.
You lost a lot of friends that day, Nico. We both did.
In some way, our friends from the village were lucky. I lost myself that day too. Everything that was good and innocent in me died along with them. If I could live those hours again, I think I would have preferred to be buried in the pit along with everyone else. This is all that is left of me. What am I good at, Roman? What is my trade? Dealing death? Because that is all that is open to me.
I will tell you what you are good at, Nico. You are a good cousin and a good friend. You still have integrity. No matter what you say, there is humanity in you. You still have the power to be good. It's important that you believe that.
Maybe I will start to believe it when Darko is dead. That might give me some perspective.
This killing must stop sometime, Nico. Once this is done, then you must begin to forgive. Think about your future instead of the horrible things that have happened to you. To us. To all of us. In the past.
After this is done, then we can talk about forgiveness and redemption. Now is not the time for such conversation.
Darko Brevich, here in Liberty City. You have worked hard to make this happen.
Every moment, since our friends from the village were killed, I have worked to find out who it was that betrayed us. When I knew, everything I've done has been to find that person.
I know.
It was weeks after the massacre that I realized that we must have been given up by someone in our group. By someone from our own village. I had to go back to the pit. The bodies were dumped. I had to count the ripe corpses and to see who was missing.
Nico, I know.
That wasn't something the old me could have done. But losing those friends, seeing them cut down in their prime, it hardened me. It made me cold.
I know it did, Nico, but that was a long time ago. I'm not saying that Darko should be forgiven. It is not our place to do that, but the Darko you are going to meet might be very different from the one who led our friends to their death.
He will be enough of that man to justify what I have to do to him. Be assured of that, cousin.
They arrive at the airport, and Nico and Darko engage in conversation. Nico is so upset when Darko sees this as nothing more than a joke. He laughs. He barely cares. At first he's afraid when confronted, but now he knows it's Nico. He doesn't care much to be begging for the mercy Nico hoped he would be. Darko points out Nico's hypocrisy, especially when money is concerned. Nico fails to see himself in Darko, but to everyone else, it's at least a little bit obvious, like when he consistently talks about how much of a snake Ray is and then kills him for no real reason other than Jimmy told him to do so. Darko then claims Nico killing him would be doing him a favour, but Roman thinks he should be left to suffer, and that Nico doesn't need more death on his hands to feel better.
Kill me, Dan! You fucking hypocrite. Trust me. You'll be doing me a favor. Ah!
Nico, come on. Let's go. Let him suffer. He knows what he did. It doesn't look like he enjoys life too much. Come on.
The player can choose how they wish. Notice how Darko is. He's tied up, defenseless, like someone trapped in their mind would be, like how Nico would be. If Nico chooses to kill Darko, he shoots 12 times, one for each of the fallen members of the 15-man squad Darko let down.
You piece of shit! That was for everyone! That was for me!
Okay, Nico, it's over. It's all over now. Leave him there. We should go, before anyone turns up.
But is this suicide of some sort? If Darko and Nico are at least somewhat one another? That's what makes this hard. Darko, by what we know of him, deserves to die. But Nico shouldn't have to deal with the negatives of it. Sparing him makes Nico feel better, and everyone congratulates him, but is this what Nico would have really done? He even seems confused in the dialogue that plays after they leave the airport if Darko is spared.
You did the right thing. It's not often. Sure. Definitely did the right thing. Proud person.
Let's have a fucking party. Break out the champagne and let the disease drink this junk to live after hunting them for over a decade. Shit! Someone hand me the keys to the fucking city. I'm sorry if my throat offends you. This has been a very difficult moment for me. It took every fiber of my being, pulling in the same direction, not to kill Darko, to not get revenge for all those lives he took away.
What made you stab him?
I don't know. I wanted it for so long, he would just be dead. Like everyone else from our village, I was the one that survived the first attack. Living is not easy. I would live to kill Darko as well. Then when I looked at him, I realized nothing would change if I killed him. Revenge will not somehow shut the book on what I have seen. Don't you die, get closure.
So, you keep living. You try to have a happy life. You try to move on.
I tried. Yes.
This must then kick into Nico's all-time depression. The desperation of the violin as it tries to grasp at something higher, only to fall down tragically, just to simmer right to the floor. The cello reminding you of how low your mood is. The background fills made from the crash cymbals, toms, and what I can only assume to be a hammered dulcimer. The crying echoes of the past, and all of the raw and pure horror it brings. This is the pause menu music. I think that this is what Nico feels whenever he stops. You'll notice that whenever you first pause the game, the music doesn't start instantly, because Nico has to concentrate on killing, stealing, and God only knows what else. He hasn't had time to think about everything that rests in his mind. So when he stops for a minute, he's feeling a bit blank, because he's finally got some thinking time. But suddenly he'll start thinking. And how does he spend his thinking time? On his past. On the things that hurt him. The struggle that lurks around his mind and body. The way that the music pours into the scene is like Nico's mind filling with dread after realizing how his life has gone so wrong. The innocent lives that Nico has taken and the guilt that comes with that. and the backstory that led him to do that is perhaps the only feeling that reminds him he's not dead yet. Now perhaps this next one is quite a stretch, but I think it is possible. Remember, this part is only about theories and symbolism, so it's only up for interpretation. But is it possible that Nico self-harms? Some of the common signs that someone has been self-harming are general signs of depression, having lots of unexplained injuries, especially on the limbs, clothes and skin with bloodstains on, wearing long sleeves all the time despite the weather being usually warm or hot, not getting change in front of others even if it's just changing tops around people they would usually feel comfortable with, unusual and irregular eating habits, alcohol and drug abuse, pulled hair, speaking about suicide in some form or another, not wanting to talk to people or keeping themselves to themselves a lot, being alone, self-loathing and feeling guilty and like they're to blame for everything. They have previously self-harmed, outbursts of anger, risky or reckless behaviour, not giving up items like knives and lighters willingly. So out of this list of 16, Nico has at least 6 of these canonically, but more realistically 12. Firstly, the 6 signs that he does share are perhaps the most important signs to solve the puzzle. Firstly, Nico definitely has depression. I don't think you need a test for that. Even though a lot of characters have short sleeve tops like t-shirts and some characters can even go without tops sometimes, Nico is always wearing long sleeve tops. You could say it's because he's cold or it's his style, but it can't be that cold for others to be wearing short sleeves and him not to be. Add to the fact that Serbia has a similar average temperature to New York, or the real life equivalent of Liberty City, with Serbia basically just experiencing less variance. Surely Nico would be more used to this weather than the inhabitants of Liberty City. In the months that GTA 4 takes place in, Serbia would be colder too. And style, really? I can't see Nico A caring that much about style and B not even once wearing a t-shirt. Seems implausible to me. Nico spends most of his time alone. He works alone.
Standing up. Assertive move, right. I like a man who takes control.
When he first visits Florian, he requests to be left alone after that. When he's done with Darko, he requests to be left alone. Nico goes to his shared apartment and yet is always alone. At the end of the story, he's alone. Nico blames himself for most of the wrongdoing that happens to Roman in the story, like in one of the endings. He blames himself for most of his actions too. Some of them are his fault, but at least some seem a case of poor self-esteem. Nico is definitely no stranger to anger. Again, sometimes it's rightfully so, but sometimes it just feels out of place to his usual self. Except for when he goes into a food outlet, by himself or with friends, or a food stand on the street, we never see Nico eating. He only eats junk food, and never eats a proper meal unless he's with others. His eating habit is unhealthy, no matter how you have it. But what are the other 6 reasons? I'm grouping the second and third point because of how similar they are in the context. He could definitely have a lot of injuries and therefore bloodstains from all of the antics he gets up to. This one is sort of a weak point, as either way he's going to have injuries, self-inflicted or not. But how do we know it's only the scars caused by the enemies under his clothes? If they are self-inflicted, he could blame the cause of it on his work, and no one would think he did it himself. Whilst Nico doesn't use drugs and often criticizes others for the use of it, especially Darko and Derek, he is shown to drink. He is offered alcohol in some story missions but usually rejects it, maybe because he likes a clear mind before going to work. Either way, he admits that he likes to drink a lot to fuck himself up enough. He doesn't drink that much, but when he does, he gets very drunk to the point of feeling numb. Nico never directly talks about suicide, but I think it's on his mind. You look at what he says on the way to Darko, and his wish to be dead with his friends rather than being alive. His questioning of who he is. Another thing that makes me believe Nico is suicidal is the way that he says that Dwayne reminds him of himself. But Dwayne's main story arc and focus point is the fact that he's very suicidal. I can't be 100% sure that Nico is suicidal, but the evidence points in that way. This is probably the second or third most important piece of evidence to find out whether Nico could be self-harming or not. Suicidal people and self-harmers aren't always the same, but they often overlap. This may explain more of why drinking is a factor in this. Nico is a risk taker. Being a risk taker isn't always a bad thing. In fact, a lot of entrepreneurs are risk takers. But Nico is a risk taker because he feels he has nothing to risk. He doesn't care about his life. His job is pretty much entirely risk-based, and so by still doing crime, he's putting himself up to be killed. The last one is a little bit of an odd one, but hear me out. I doubt that Nico would give up any of his weapons if he was asked, or if he gave them up, he'd just go and get some more. The reason this is a sign is because if they don't have the tools to harm themselves, then they're safe. But if they won't get rid of it, then they feel like they need it. Nico wouldn't get rid of his weapons, and he'd probably say it's because of his job requiring it. But even if he quit crime, I doubt he'd get rid of them, and it could be for the same reason. So, whilst there's no definitive evidence either way, it's your job to decide which side to believe, but I think it offers an interesting perspective. I think that whether he does or doesn't, it's concerning that he's feeling so low that we believe he could be doing that. Is it possible that Bernie at least had something to do with the fall of the 15-man squad? There were only 3 people that survived. Nico, whom of which is obviously very athletically fit and always has his wit. Darko, who we can assume is similar to Nico before drugs ate him fully away, and Florian. I know one of the big points of seeing Florian for the first time in a decade was how much he has supposedly changed, but you get the impression that he was the same overall, just he's more open about himself now. But instead of guessing, let me tell you some facts. We know that Darko was paid $1,000.
How much? 1,000.
Why he wasn't paid in Serbian dinar is beyond me. Now, according to the Recovery Village, heroin costs about $150 to $200 per gram. Yes, I did look this up and it is on my search history now. According to some quick calculations and what I could find on the web about heroin doses, his money would survive him between 5 and 160 doses. Pretty big range. Let's assume he's not that heavy of a heroin user or addict at this point, but also that he's not a beginner either. This would mean that it's more likely 40 to 53 doses, probably. For Darko to sell out his friends for such a little dose doesn't seem right. I'm not saying he wouldn't sell out his squad, I'm saying he wouldn't sell them out for such a small amount. Darko doesn't strike me as someone who's that dumb, and I know he's addicted, but surely that'd push you to get more money from them. Plus, Darko could probably make more money with the squad alive. So what am I suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe Bernie had something to do with it. Think about it. How did Bernie get over to Liberty City and become so rich? We see Roman's progress, and sure, Roman is a dumbass, but Roman has to borrow from loan sharks to get by, and suddenly Bernie ends up in Liberty City after this, convenient especially since only the guilty run, with a lavish lifestyle. More than that, he even admits himself that he didn't like the way things were back home, not only because of the war but because of his sexuality and personality being very exaggerated. My theory is either Bernie took the deal because of maybe him being bullied in the group or just wanting to leave for America, and he blamed it on Darko, maybe because Darko found out and Bernie wanted him to take the fall, or Bernie found out that Darko survived and he paid him some of the money to be quiet and go off the grid. So why would Darko say that he did it to Nico when Nico finally catches up to him? Either because Darko just wants this all to be over, or because he's sticking to his agreement with Bernie. Or maybe Darko did take the deal and Darko found out that Bernie survived, and maybe they had some confrontation or a closer friendship than Nico did to them, and so Darko paid Bernie to be quiet. Maybe it was $1,000 after Bernie took some money, maybe a consistent payment rather than a one-off. This would make sense why Bernie is kind of quiet and not impressed when Nico kills Darko, and happy when he spares him. Bernie can still be getting paid, or another innocent doesn't have to die because of Bernie. Or maybe Darko did just take the deal and Bernie genuinely knew nothing of it, but it seems a little bit suspicious to me. There is a mission in the game called The Master and the Molotov. It is the mission where you kill Mikhail. The mission's name is derived from the Russian novel The Master and the Margarita. You see, Rockstar Games have a habit of including references to media relating to the setting of the game in its writing. In the novel, the Master is sent to a psychiatric ward after writing a novel of his own about the Pontius Pilate story, which the government rejected its publication and questioned him for its creation, despite him burning the manuscript. Similar to what the author himself, Mikhail, Bulgakov did with one of the early manuscripts of the novel. This could be how Mikhail Faustin feels. He expresses what he feels to be true, and he's got people labeling him as insane because of it, and is therefore punished. Now, many people assume that the change of the name to add the Molotov part was to infer Mikhail's obvious attraction to violence and his violent nature. But I've got a better theory. In the novel, the characters who create the namesake of the novel, the Master and the Margarita, commit bigamy by having a secret relationship, as neither of them are happy in their current marriages. I believe that this is how Dmitri and Mikhail are. They can't find happiness in anything else in life without each other. Despite what they say, they need each other. Dmitri needed Faustin in prison, and Faustin needs Dmitri's help with dealing with things now. They were so close that they saw each other as brothers and even had tattoos to symbolize this. They were close, but by Dmitri turning on Faustin, he's turned himself explosive. He used to be a Margarita that was coupled well with his master, and has now turned into a Molotov, an extremely sensitive and flame-inducing explosive. Now, let me get this clear, I'm not implying that they have a romantic or sexual relationship of any sort, but they need each other to survive in this world, and so, with Dmitri selling him out, he's ruined his own chances. Differences can highlight the key characteristics of it. For example, Playboy X always wears his multicolored hoodie. It's colourful like how he sees himself, and he wants to encourage and be a part of all communities. But he's too hood to let that happen. Compare that to Dwayne's design, a black jacket to show his pessimism and his dark thoughts. Clothes aren't just good indicators of character for the North Holland hustlers, it's used in the Faustin Mafia too. Dmitri is always seen wearing a suit of some sort, implying he's entirely business. Meanwhile, Mikhail himself often wears a red shirt to indicate his anger, but also show that he is business orientated too. Artwork for the game shows Dmitri with yellow shades on, foreshadowing his betrayal, because yellow is the colour of betrayal, apparently. Okay, maybe this one is a stretch. Faustin was also seen wearing a suit with some money in his hand, showing he's after the money, and although we don't know, we can assume that he's on the phone to do something probably pretty cold. Yeah, okay, maybe this one's a stretch too, but Another point about clothes is the sweater you get from Happiness Island, which just reads, "Happiness is land. Happiness is land. Happiness is reserved for the rich." Just another reminder of the rat race that they're all living in. Another quick point about Playboy and Dwayne are their names. Despite being a gangster, Dwayne still uses his real name, whereas Playboy X uses some made-up name, with a name relating to porno magazines, perhaps implying he's modelled by the higher-ups. But it also means that Dwayne is real and honest, whereas Trey Stewart is just a fake ego, an actor. One of the interesting parts about the character roster from GTA 4 is that they're all very unique, and one thing that enriches this further is its range of nationalities used. Here's a quick map I've edited to show the origins of most of the GTA 4 characters. Black means it's an important part of the story or an important character comes from there, whereas the grey means it's from a not so important character's origin. If we ignore Africa, it covers almost about half the world, even though the character listing is not that massive. You've got Serbians, Russians, Italians, the Irish, Americans, Spanish, Puerto Ricans, Jamaicans. It makes you know more about some of these cultures that perhaps you may not have even known about before. However, somewhat tying into this, I believe one of the game's more hidden themes is prejudice.
Ever been as bitches, working for guineas, working for niggers, any asshole with a buck? A whole lot spent in a proper manner, oh yeah, wine and women as quick as possible, and remain a slave forever.
There's prejudice against different races and nationality origins, there's prejudice against homosexuals. However, I'm somewhat glad of it because it makes you think how little-minded the people who use prejudice must be. Speaking of races, a quick fact is that generally the nationality of some of the characters relate to the relations of their country and another country or reflect historical events. For example, when one lone Serbian killed an important man from another country, they demanded that Serbia pay for this. I'm talking about Nico killing Vlad, but what else does this sound like? The assassination of Franz Ferdinand, except in this case the Russians were actually helping the Serbians. But speaking of the Russians, in GTA 4 the Faustin Mafia help Nico, and consequently Roman, by giving him work and form an alliance, but it seems it's only because of Russia's interest in personal gain. When Russia and Serbia were allies in the First World War, Russia only did it because of their own personal interest, and not because of some deep respect to nurture its smaller siblings. If you've played all of GTA 4's missions before, then you'll be aware of the story arc with the diamonds. Everyone in the city is going crazy over these diamonds, with the whole gangs intercepting deals with the diamonds involved. Everyone wants either them or the $2 million they're worth and have been sold for numerous times. The diamonds represent the idea of an easy win, the lucky break we all want. Before you can have it, it's gone. Someone has gone and stole it. When you borrow some money, you may feel like you're rich because you've got that extra cash, but soon enough you're going to have to pay it back. The diamonds are as much a curse as they are a blessing, if not more so. It shows you what people do with their excessive power. Some of them turn on you, some of them try and sleaze their way into trying to make you feel like you owe them, and some may even keep their heads on, just to get robbed or taken advantage of in some way. Whenever Nico tries to tell people about the past, he keeps getting interrupted. Whilst he does have opportunity to speak his mind from time to time, Nico is often told, through non-verbal cues, to be quiet, to not tell anyone. Whilst just talking about your issues isn't going to solve them, and is no replacement for professional help, it is a start and is better than holding the issues deep in your soul. Nico's story keeps getting interrupted, preventing him from being able to speak about it and move on. This is symbolistic of him never getting the opportunity to just speak out and move on. It never stops. In his head, he'll always be replaying the war and the events around it on repeat until he dies. He will never be able to get that off his chest.
Years ago, I never quite knew what it was. So many years I wondered what it was, or what was wrong with me, that I did not see it in him. Or I changed him.
Life is complicated. I never thought I'd live like this.
No?
When the war came, I did bad things. And after the war, I thought nothing of doing bad things. I killed people, smuggled people, sold people.
And you don't worry about your soul?
After you walk into a village, and you see 50 children, all sitting neatly in a row against the church wall, each with their throats cut and their hands chopped off, you realize that the creature that could do this doesn't have a soul.
God is very complicated. You mustn't give up hope.
Well, I don't know about that.
One of the interesting design choices I found was this camera angle. If you put the camera to the floor and point it up, it makes everything look big, but when you put the camera back up, it looks normal. Maybe this is overanalyzing, but I believe this is to show you something. Looking at the bottom, everything looks so big and epic, and it looks like it'd be so much cooler up there, but when you're at the top, it just looks normal. This could mean two things. Firstly, that the people at the top don't know what it's like to be at the bottom, as whenever they look down, it just looks normal to them. Secondly, and perhaps more obvious, is that everyone at the bottom thinks it'd be cool to be at the top, to have the money, the women, the houses, the cars. But when you get to the top and you've got it all, maybe that's when you realise that the more wholesome things in life are where you want to be headed. It kinda ties into what Nico says at the end of the game.
So this is what the dream feels like. This is the victory we longed for.
It could just be a camera angle that looks cool and they used it in the game. And again, maybe it's me overanalyzing, but it's maybe plausible. When Nico helps Derek bring Kim Jong-guk into this city illegally, there are many jokes made at the fact that he is coming into Liberty City like Nico did, illegally and on a boat. However, later on when John Covelli sends Nico out to kill Kim, there becomes some irony in the fact that he killed someone with a similar entrance to the city and someone that he was also helping before. But it also shows us a dark fact about Nico that perhaps the game doesn't reel in on until this point. Nico only follows the money's orders. Despite what he says, he will let money change what he does. Nico is essentially as much as a sheep as the celebrities he mocks. I guess no one in the city is immune to the powers of wealth. When Ray Bulgarin appeared in Russian Revolution, it had a really weird tone to it. He came and he spoke to Nico in a clearly passive-aggressive way until the passive part was dropped, but Nico's response to him seemed a little bit weird to me. The way he yells at Bulgarin seems more like he was yelling at himself. That maybe deep down, Nico blames himself for what happened on the ship, and I think this is because Ray Bulgarin is symbolic of Nico's past. Nico can't move on from the past now that Bulgarin is here in Liberty City. Nico ran to Liberty City to escape Bulgarin, and suddenly Bulgarin has followed him here. He can't escape, just like he can't escape his past. They're stuck together. Nico can only move on properly when he's gone. One of the first things I realised on Darko when writing the script was how much he represents Nico. He looks just like Nico. Similar facial features, similar hair, hell even similar default clothes. But that's just externally, he also represents Nico internally too. Firstly, he points out that Nico is a hypocrite for killing people, but then not seeming to understand why Darko sold out the unit. Nico does seem to have some remorse for his sins, but he never addresses the comparison, and even stays quiet when Darko talks about the innocent that was slaughtered by the group. Also, he seems very sad about life and even wants death. But there is something that I think Darko Breivik represents that is perhaps more relevant than that. I think Darko is a representation of what Nico could have become, or maybe even an extreme and stretched out version of himself, perhaps indicating how he feels inside. Even the name fits. Darko Breivik becomes Dark Bellic. I think in some form that is the truth. How much of that is fact and how much of it is overanalyzing, I don't know. Darko, despite playing a small physical role in the game, plays an interesting character and is perhaps one of the unspoken main focuses of the game. However, the game is far away from avoiding criticism. I'm not talking about the dark colour palettes or any of the game mechanics like that, even though I'm personally a big fan of it. I'm here to ask some of the story questions. Perhaps this is one of the questions that can be asked in almost any GTA game, but why are they choosing Nico to do all these jobs? For example, Ray sends Johnny and Nico to do the diamond deal, but why does he send Nico when he barely knows him or trusts him well enough to be dealing with the diamonds? Why does almost everyone seem to love Nico in the first mission he does for them? And for those who don't, why has no one just killed Nico? Sure, I get the fact that Nico is supposed to be very skilled, but it would not be too difficult to kill one man should you try hard enough. And yet, no one does. For a realistic game and story, it can oftentimes be too one-sided. Dimitri, Darko and Ray Bulgarin are just three of the main antagonists that never have enough backstory drawn, and they're only our enemy because of what Nico has said pretty much. They should build two-sided stories and make them into characters so we can understand them and decide who to hate ourselves. Okay, here's a quick fire round. Speaking of Bulgarin, why couldn't they kill Nico or Paki in Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend? They're literally just standing there, you can even hear them shooting very close to Nico and Paki. Why does Nico receive $250,000 for the revenge ending? Who gives it to him and why? When being presented with a choice of who to kill, why does the second person to ask Nico to kill the other one always assume they're a target in the first place? What I mean by this is, why does Dwayne assume Playboy wants to get him, and why does Derek assume Francis will go for him? This game doesn't have a lot of focus.
But never any fucking focus. Never. Focus.
1 minute we're on a cold revenge mission, looking for the traitor of the 15-man squad. The next minute we're helping Florian, or Bernie, fighting off homophobes, then we're working with the mafia and doing big shootouts, then we're being told to go off on dates with Kate. Where is the focus? The game has loads of good elements, but sometimes I feel like that they just don't belong together, like they're taken from different games. The credits go on for way too long at the end of the game, and I don't think they're skippable either. On top of that, the songs that they play are either the main theme, songs that are too happy and don't fit the theme of the game, or repeats of songs that they've already played in the credits. However, you do manage to see some good shots of the city in the credits, but 30 minutes? It's a bit long. But it appears I've lost focus, shut up Jerry.
But never any fucking focus. Never. Focus.
Because last time I remember, I was making a video about how dark GTA 4 is, and subsequently how good it is. So, where to start? Well, let's start small. I'm not going to talk about all the good things about this game because I could be here forever. But I'll talk about some small, more obscure details. Like Michelle's house. When you're dating Michelle, you end up going to her house at least a couple of times. However, it turns out that Michelle is an undercover agent working for presumably the IAA, so her house is located right at a convenient point for overlooking people like Nico. Firstly, it's right near the centre of Broker, but it's near the bridge leading to Algonquin, and as terrorism is apparently a big issue in Liberty City at this point, she could have surveillance at her house overlooking the bridge. It's also right next to the rougher Boabo. Nico also passes right by Michelle's house a fair few times whilst on the way to missions. Sure, this isn't canonical, and it's never said that she's watching Nico when he's off to do his missions, but it's usually the shortest way and it's a nice little detail. This could be coincidence since, as previously mentioned, it's in the middle of Broker, a hotspot itself, but come on, give me some credit. I enjoy the random encounter missions. They're usually very simple in its actual game design, as it's usually either giving people a lift, getting violent with someone, chasing someone, or any combination of these three. They're also usually not very challenging, but what it does open is an opportunity for you to see how dark the citizens of Liberty City are. It's not just Nico or the Balecs or the Serbians or Nico's employers, it's at least the whole city. It's an evil spell that's been cast upon the city, locking it in its hell indefinitely. It gives an opportunity to see how Nico will react to different people, gives the writers an opportunity to include some otherwise unfitting characters in, and it gives Nico an opportunity to catch up with some of the people he has met. Perhaps this is a case of personal preference, but I love the realism and the inclusion of consequences, the first GTA game to do so. The realism of the driving, the darkness, and the depression Nico and his friends experience because of the choices they make. The choices you make in this game can have consequences that don't affect you as the player, but they will definitely affect Nico. I love the dread at the end of the game, the fact that someone you love got killed because of you and your choice. Speaking of which, I think I've teased long enough now. Nico stands there, making his decision. There are two endings. You can either take Kate's advice and forget about the money, and do what needs to be done. You drive over to Broker, where it all started on the platypus, where Dimitri and his men are. You take out his men, and work your way further into the platypus, until it's just you and him, the big man himself, Dmitry Raskolov. Except he's not such a big man now, as he begs you for mercy, something maybe Nico would have given if Dmitri hadn't harassed Nico and his cousin so much. But in this timeline of events... Nico tells Roman what he has done, much to his disappointment. Otherwise, things are looking up. Roman's wedding is soon, he has still got the respect of himself and Kate, and he's out of the criminal underworld. The next day, Nico awakens, not long before Roman calls him, reminding him to go to the wedding. Nico quickly dons a suit and picks up Kate from her house, after she congratulates Nico on taking her advice and leaving the criminal underworld. Nico and Kate then converse in perhaps the most positive way I've heard any of the characters speak all game. They make jokes about Nico and his, as of now, previous life for crime. They speak of Kate's dead brother, and Nico is genuinely concerned for her well-being. They then speak of life in general, not before the conversation turns more towards them two, perhaps being together. Kate is unsure and worries that Nico's ways might hold her back, but Nico assures her that it won't, and that he'll always protect her.
Shall we go to the church? So, how do sociopaths behave at weddings?
Will you fire a gun into the air as your cousin walks down the aisle?
No, there won't be any gunfire at this wedding. I might steal the collection box if the mood takes me, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll mug any nuns that are hanging around the church as well.
You know, it's not that weird to think that there might be some shooting at this wedding. Not only do you seem to attract ultra-violence wherever you go, but this was the church where we had my brother's funeral. You remember how that turned out?
Yeah. How are you about that? Do you miss him?
I'm okay. He's still in my thoughts, you know. He brought it on himself and he wasn't a good person. When I think about him, I just wish that he'd been happy in his life.
What would have made him happy?
It's hard to say, but maybe the right person?
Yeah? Do you think that that is the answer for everyone then?
Maybe. The right person can make your life wonderful in the same way that the wrong one can ruin it. The problem is that it's difficult to tell which one the man you are with is.
Huh. I've had some trouble telling right and wrong apart before. After the war, I was involved in a life I felt was not for me. Those decisions became very difficult.
You're talking about your criminal exploits as if they're a thing of the past.
Well, maybe they are. I don't want to be involved with the men I have been involved with. I want to surround myself with good people, not bad ones. Recently, I have tied up a lot of loose ends in this city. My past does not haunt me in the way that it used to. I've tried to separate myself from it. And I'm ready to try to be good.
Are you? Are you prepared to say goodbye to the fast cars, the drugs, the violence, the cheap women?
Yes, I am.
Do you think that the men you've been dealing with will let you walk off into the sunset?
They will have to. I'm not a slave. It would be easier to be happy if I was with the right person, though.
How do I know that you're right for me? How do I know that I won't get hurt?
I'll look after you, Kate. I promise I'll protect you. There's nothing else I can say.
You don't need to say anything else.
They enter the church, and Roman and Mallory are married. They come out and everyone greets them, congratulating them. You see the two Bellic couples all interact with each other. Nico then puts his arm around the girl, both with smiles and unexpected comfort in this. It almost looks like Nico is going to go in for a kiss, when suddenly Pegorino shows up and guns Kate down, before zooming off. Silence fills the previously joyful air. Before were the happiness of the church bells and everyone cheering them on. Now all that remains is the sound of the funeral as the quiet ambience and the church bells drown the prior mood. After a heart-wrenched Nico explains that she's dead and it's all his fault, he's sent home by Jacob and Roman.
Oh, come on out of this blood clot. Nico. Nico, come on. Oh, somebody call an ambulance. Call a fucking ambulance!
She's dead!
What? Oh, shit. Shit, shit.
She told me to leave it. I thought I had. I thought it was over.
It's never over, Aya. Nico, you can't blame yourself.
Of course I can! She's dead!
Easy, easy, are you brave, man? Easy. Calm down, man. Calm down. Nico, you have to get out of here. Yes, go on, man. Go on, man. We have to leave, man. Just leave.
Get out of here.
Don't worry, we take care of this, man.
Okay, okay.
An utterly depressed Nico struggles to get out of bed as his alarm clock rings loudly.
Poor girl. She should never have got close to me.
He gets a message from Jacob, telling him that they're ready to hit Pegorino back. After an anger-filled Nico takes out most of his men, he gets to Pegorino on the national symbol that is Happiness Island. With the help of Jacob and Roman, Nico takes Pegorino out after some pre-death speech. He's congratulated by Roman, who exclaims he's won.
I told you to leave me alone.
I give the orders here. Me!
You're not looking so good there, Jimmy.
Screw you.
What the fuck did she ever do to you?
I wanted you immigrant dipshit.
Big talk. You want to know something funny?
Not really.
The commission? The old families? I know some of those guys. And they thought you were a fat fucking joke.
Whatever.
A joke!
Cousin!
Yeah.
You did it.
Really? I don't know.
But what has he won? He's lost his love interest, and all that he has left is his cousin and the few friends that remain. Paki is heartbroken, and so is Nico.
I never thought this would happen, Nico. I never fucking thought it. Kate, sweet, innocent Katie.
I'm sorry, Packy. I was there. I tried to stop it.
She didn't do nothing to nobody. It was us McCreary men who are the sinners. We're paying for that ourselves. She didn't have to pay, too.
She didn't, Packy. You're right.
I gotta be with me ma, Nico. She don't got much left other than me, and that ain't much. See you, man.
It's enough. See you, man.
Nico clearly hasn't found the dream, so why not take back that choice? Why not agree to work with Dimitri instead? You can take Roman's advice if that sounds better for you. If you work with Dimitri, you meet up with Phil Bell, an employee of Pegorino's. You go to where you're supposed to be collecting the money, and so you need to wait for Dimitri to give the heroin to the men, apparently Bulgarin's men. But Dimitri betrays Nico by killing the men he was supposed to give the heroin to. Trapped in the buyer's compound, Nico and Phil fight through the now angered men for the money. Eventually they catch the money and make off with it. Nico calls Roman, informing him of the choice he made, and Roman seems very happy with Nico, despite Nico not seeming to like his own choice. Kate is called and is not happy with Nico at all, refusing to go to Roman's wedding because of this. Pegorino and Nico part on good terms, with Pegorino being particularly pleased with still having both the money and the heroin. Nico attends the wedding alone and watches Roman and Mallory get married before going outside and cheering the couple, walking out from the church. He is approached by a man asking if he is Nico Bellic. He quickly catches on that there's trouble, so he reaches for the man's gun, but in the struggle, Roman gets shot and is killed. Nico, enraged, begins shooting at Dimitri's assassin, who's dead now, which startles everyone, so Jacob stops Nico from doing that before sending him home.
Yo, Nico! Calm down, man, yo. Easy.
He told me to leave it. I left it.
Nico, get up, man.
Oh,
Gotta get you out of here, man. Police them soon come. Don't worry, man. Me find Dimitri and me call you. Leave.
Okay.
Yet again, depressed, Nico just manages to crawl out of bed.
Roman. I'm so sorry, cousin.
He gets a text from Jacob before he meets him, telling him to prepare for the fight, and then gets a call from him telling him to meet him. When he tails Pegorino's men, Nico talks about how much he misses and loves Roman, and feels as if he's been nothing but a curse to Roman. And it is revealed that all Roman would talk about before Nico came to Liberty City was Nico.
Roman brought me to this city and I was nothing but a curse to him. He was beaten because of me. He was shot. His business and his home were burnt down. He was kidnapped. I should have known that the lives of those close to me would be destroyed.
I don't think you have a choice about that, you know, Nico. Roman love you. No matter what, he's gonna get close to you. Because before you come, all I'm gonna do is talk about him cousin Nico. If you didn't wanna come up here, he was gonna go to Europe and drag you on a boat. That's just the way Roman was. Don't ever forget him, see?
No, I will not forget him. Nor will I let these men forget him.
Dimitri kills Pecorino because he doesn't want to share the spoils of a victory.
Back on top! I didn't work this hard to share the spoils of a victory! Goodbye!
Dimitri, you and me is gonna end this.
I do not regret sending that man for you!
He takes out the men and again engages in a battle against Dimitri, where he flies all around South Broca, where they first started, before crash landing on Happiness Island. Nico takes out Dimitri.
Welcome to America. Speak English. You're a strange man. You killed your best friend. You betrayed everyone who ever came in contact with you. You killed my cousin. I guess the survival of the fittest thing really meant a lot to you.
Come on, Nico, man. Get out of here. Let's go. Come on. Go on. Come on, let's go.
Roman never hurt anyone.
I know. Let's go, man. It's over. You won.
But what has he gained? He's now lost Roman, but there's a third option, right? No. And that's the point. You're stuck between two options that will cause a big loss in Nico's life. He's not going to get off that easily. In both endings, you lose someone you love. Dimitri and Pecorino are killed either way by Nico or Dimitri, and Nico is left with nothing. Kate leaves Nico in the deal ending after a while, and Roman will be busy with his new family to have as much time for Nico. If you look at the map after you've completed the story, you'll notice it's very empty. There's nothing open for Nico to do, and if he's done all of the missions and side activities, all that's left for him is more crime. All of the colourful blips are gone, and all that is left is black, white, grey and orange. Black being the colour of evil and death, which is consequently the most used colour on the pause menu. White being the colour of emptiness, coldness and distance, but also reflection and innocence, perhaps noting the absence of these. Grey being the colour of pessimism and sadness, which is probably the second most used colour, and orange being the colour of superficialness and impatience, perhaps talking about the city's culture, but also exhibitionism, the act of exposing themselves to unsuspecting people, usually in order for sexual attention, perhaps talking about everyone's desire to be rich and famous, willing to do anything to get there, or maybe it takes it in a literal tone, and talking about the shady characters you meet on the street, like Eddie Lowe. Speaking of which, there's a lot of Americanism in these final moments. The final part happens at the National Treasure of Happiness Island, before the camera pans over to either the Rotterdam Towers, which are based off the Empire State Building, or the Statue of Happiness, which is based off the Statue of Liberty. In the deal ending, Nico sarcastically welcomes Dimitri to America, and then tells Dimitri to speak English in a patronizing way, like a racist American would tell Dimitri or, ironically, Nico himself. This game is about American culture as much as it's about crime. The decision to follow the American dream is as much as your choice as crime, although, like we see, only one way ends nicely. So which of the two choices do you take? Which hell would you like to see? Because this isn't what the American dream feels like. This isn't what you longed for. This is a criminal's consequence.